So this is a video I've wanted to do for a long time. I've written stuff, walked away to think about it, and returned to only rewrite it again and again. I've talked about these things openly for years, both in passing in my videos as well as in person. You think it'd be easy to do videos that focus on it? But it really wasn't. There's a lot of weight when discussing these sorts of things. The focus, the amount of information I give, how I word myself. And it's taken me years to get to the point where I finally feel able to go ahead and share my mental health story in full. Now I've decided against trying to fit everything into one video, instead settling on a short series. How long this will be, I don't know. However long I feel I need to share my story in hopes that it may help others in making them feel not so alone or helping them understand mental illness. So I guess this is where I begin, with the chain of events that dredged up the emotions of the past in a way that completely altered my life. I just started college at the time and was actually enjoying things. I hadn't been the most popular person at school. I was very firm-headed, almost entirely resistant to peer pressure, and I knew what my interests were and I ran with them. I'd earned the nickname Nature Geek after co-founding a student group with a friend centered around zoology and botany. I had intended for the most part of my life to enter said field, whether it be research or field work, but as college applications got close, I sort of got a wake-up call. It hadn't been until the open day at the college that I really decided what I wanted to do. In the end, I settled for English, geography, psychology, and sociology as my A-levels. The last one I hadn't even heard of until I went to the open evening. Yet after reading the module outline, I became sure I wanted to take it. I love the fact that I'd gotten to choose all my lessons, that I had more freedom, but most of all, I love the fact I'd formed my very first queer family. Sadly, this feeling that life was on the up, it was only temporary. The day everything started to fall apart didn't start out any differently. I arrived at college and met up with my friends before heading on to morning registration. There we were told that we were going to be having an external drama group come in and do us a piece as part of some project. The topic of that piece was going to be domestic abuse. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Why would I? It wasn't a topic that impacted me. So I thought. Turns out it was. In fact, it was a subject that had a very strong impact on me. It broke down numerous psychological barriers I'd built up over time to cordon off certain emotions I had with parts of my childhood. I remember these events before attending the assembly, but I could only ever recall them vaguely and my mind seemed to skip to the next topic very quickly. Part of that was the fact that I could recall my mum telling me the one time I'd asked about why we were living in the refuge, that it was a place women went if they didn't have much money. Now I just accepted that without question at the time, and it's one of the things I remembered well over the next decade. I'd always think back to it whenever my mind became bothered by what had happened over those couple of years. But something in that drama group completely destroyed these defences. I left early that day, excusing myself on the basis that I felt ill, which really wasn't far from the truth. By the next day, how I felt hadn't improved much as I attended college. I made it a single lesson before my sociology tutor asked me to stay behind. She told me I was looking a bit pale and hadn't been taking part in class. That's when I had my first breakdown. I could barely stand as the shaking became so convulsive, so violent. My body felt like it was racing from one extreme to another as I began to cry. I remember shouting, demanding to know what right these people had to act something so traumatic, to trivialize it. What I felt inside, however, was not anger at the idea that they trivialized it, but that they'd made me face what my mind had taken every measure to avoid. I remember my sociology tutor first asking for permission to embrace me, hugging me and telling me that I needed to get help and that she'd be able to arrange for it. She walked me over to the A-level office where she booked me in for a session with the college counsellor before signing me out for the day. She asked me if any of my family could pick me up. I said there was my mum, but right now I couldn't face her. In the end, I got the bus home. When I got home, I just set my mind to getting some rest. I'd never known the stairs to be as heavy as they were on that day. When my mum returned to find that I'd come home early for a second day in a row, I could sense her concern, but I reassured her that I was just ill and hadn't fully recovered. I just didn't want to talk about it at the time. Over the next few weeks, my life didn't get much better. The constant anxiety, depression, and anger I was feeling just wouldn't go away. I'd wake up each morning feeling hollow. Some days the simple act of standing resulted in violent retching. It was like I'd been poisoned, but no matter how many times my body tried to rid itself of the harmful elements, nothing ever changed. I missed day after day of college, sometimes catching the bus only to jump off at an earlier stop and make my way back to what I'd come to feel was the safety of home. Each time my mum asked me about what was happening, I made excuses. One day I was at college when I had a sudden spike of anxiety. I remember rushing to the toilets and only just making it in time. I sat there the whole lunch, just shaking in a cubicle. When the bell rang, I decided I couldn't study anymore that day, so I just settled on heading home, as had become the normal practice. Except this time, I didn't make it. I recall sitting at the front of the stagecoach in one of the single seats they had near the front of the bus, a seat that faces the panel behind the driver's compartment, so nobody else could see me there. I had my MP3 player plugged in as an attempt to drown out my thoughts. My mind was a war zone by this point of time. I kept thinking about the future that had seemed so bright when I first started college. I thought about my flagging attendance, the lessons I'd missed, and all the work I still failed to catch up on. I hated myself as I reflected on how my father had talked about college as the pathway to university, that I would be the first in our family to ever make it. That's when my throat started to tighten. I'd had anxiety attacks before, but this was on a whole new level. It felt like someone was physically throttling me as I kept slouching forward, forcing myself upright at the last minute so not to collapse against the panel in front of me. I don't know if it actually happened or if it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but it seemed like the blurred darkness around my peripheral vision was growing inward as my eyes started to tingle like someone had hooked them up to a weak battery. As this all sunk in, I felt an incredible need to escape. So I used everything I had to throw myself forward, latch onto the rail, and literally pull myself those few feet until I could see the driver, as I couldn't feel my legs, telling them that they had to stop the bus. In the end, they pulled into a small car park and radioed for an ambulance because she had no idea what was wrong and thought I was either having a heart attack or a stroke. In the end, I was thankful that it was only a fast response car and not a fully equipped ambulance that arrived. I'd never been so horrifically ashamed in my life as I sat in the doorway of the bus trying to bring myself down as the rest of the passengers were paraded in front of me to board a second bus. All I could think of was how my weakness had interrupted everyone else's schedule. The paramedic was wonderful, incredibly understanding, reassuring me as he checked my heart on a portable machine. He was still concerned by the severity of what had happened, so made the call to drive me to the hospital where he checked me in for further and more detailed checks. In the end, they found nothing. It had been one of the scariest experiences of my life, and it didn't even have the decency to leave me something I could point to, that I could blame, that I could show for it. A way to validate what happened as more than myself just needing to get a grip. As I left the hospital, I walked over to where my mum had parked, still in her red Royal Mail uniform. She'd been out on delivery when they had called her. She wanted answers I couldn't give at the time. There was still too much I had to think over before I could even consider talking to anyone else about it. Feelings of guilt, shame, but most of all, anxiety. I told her that we'd talk about it soon, before I headed off to bed, crying myself to sleep as I allowed my mind to psychologically torture me over what had happened, playing events again and again and again until it just got numb. It was October the 24th of 2011, the date of my 17th birthday, when I finally opened up to my mum about what had been going on. We were in the Netherlands visiting my maternal family when we decided to walk and talk. There, in the middle of a field, I finally dug deep enough to find the courage to broach the topic. I explained how I knew about the refuge and how it wasn't a place for people who had little money to go to. I let my mum know that I had memories before the refuge and that those memories included some of the things that had happened to us as a family. And that's how I first came to admit to myself the facts that, as a family, my mum, my brother, and myself had all suffered domestic abuse.